Caitlin Clark, let it be known, live on camera.
Caitlin Clark just dropped news that should have the entire WNBA celebrating, but instead, it might be the final nail in their coffin. After a season of battling injuries the league tried to downplay, she just casually announced she's back to 100%. The league's cash cow, their ratings machine, is finally healthy, right as the entire operation is about to implode. This isn't just a comeback story, it's the trigger for a potential catastrophe.
I know it's been a tough year in terms of injury for you. Does that mean you've played a little bit more golf this year?
Unfortunately, it means I've played less, just because I haven't been able to get out there with some of the injuries that I was dealing with, but now feeling back to 100%. So I've been trying to take advantage of the fall weather in Indianapolis before, it gets too cold, and obviously being down here in Florida, the weather makes it pretty easy to play some golf, but getting in as much as I can. Obviously, I stay pretty busy, so I don't get to play as much.
Let's cut through the PR nonsense. Caitlin Clark was playing hurt all season, not just banged up, but legitimately injured. Think back to that preseason game where she looked like she was moving at half speed. Then the team inexplicably played her in another meaningless exhibition game. Why? Because they were desperate to sell tickets. They followed that up by mismanaging groin injuries and an ankle situation they treated like a state secret. A level of malpractice so bad they had to fire their entire medical staff.
Next on the tee, Caitlin Clark.
Yards isn't fair.
You should be able to move up.
The player who dragged the Indiana Fever to relevance while playing on one leg is about to show up next season at full strength. That isn't just good news for Indiana, it's an existential threat to every team that thought they'd figured her out. They didn't. They just played against a hobbled version and barely survived. Seeing her loose and joking at a recent golf event wasn't just about her swing, it was a warning shot. The Clark who terrorized college basketball is back.
We don't need to speculate. We're hearing it from her mouth herself. This is something that people all off-season people, oh man, well, Caitlin's not saying what's going on with her injuries. And hey, we wanted to know directly from the horse's mouth. Why? Because we know we can't trust Stephanie White. We know for a fact, we can't trust Amber Cox, Kelly Crosskoff, and the Indiana Fever organization.
But here's the thing that should terrify everyone. All of this momentum, this unprecedented growth, is about to slam headfirst into the brick wall of CBA negotiations. The league and the players are on a collision course for a lockout, and they couldn't have picked a worse time to self-destruct. The entire business model of women's basketball right now is built on momentum, and momentum dies the second you shut down operations. Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. The WNBA's growth is almost entirely dependent on Caitlin Clark's star power. She is the engine. If you remove the engine because of a lockout, the entire machine grinds to a halt. Her cultural moment is time-sensitive. If she doesn't play for a year, she becomes a remember-when story instead of a current phenomenon, and all those new fans and sponsors will simply disappear. And you have to understand the asterisk type of money flooding into women's basketball right now. It's not coming from traditional sports investors. It's coming from tech bros and venture capitalists who see women's sports as the next speculative bet, like crypto or AI. They saw team valuations increase tenfold and jumped in, not because they love the game, but because they want to get in early, watch the valuation explode, and cash out. The problem with that kind of speculative money is that it's not patient. It's dependent on continuous growth and visibility. The second the WNBA locks out and goes dark for a season, those investors will start asking if they bet on the wrong horse. The narrative shifts from women's basketball is blowing up to women's basketball can't get out of its own way. This whole financial boom is a house of cards, and a lockout is the gust of wind that brings it all down. The Players Association seems to believe they have all the leverage because alternative leagues like Unrivaled now exist. That's delusional. Nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, grows up dreaming of playing in a 3-on-3 summer tournament. Those are side hustles, not destinations. The WNBA, for all its flaws, is still the premier league in the world. It's where you build a legacy. A lockout would be a death sentence. Most teams would go right back to playing in front of 3,000 people in empty NBA arenas. All those new, casual fans who started watching because of Clark, gone. They don't stick around for labor disputes, they just move on to the next thing. The progress from the past year wouldn't just stall, it would be completely erased overnight. And here's the sickest irony in all of this. The very success Clark brought to the league is what's fueling this entire conflict. Players are demanding more money because revenue is up, and revenue is up almost entirely because of her. Her success created a bigger pie, and now the fight over how to slice that pie is threatening to throw the whole thing in the trash, taking her career and the league's future with it. Caitlin Clark just told the world she's ready to dominate again. She's holding up her end of the bargain. But the league and the players are so busy fighting over the money that she created, they might not even give her a season to play in. The league's biggest star is healthy, the money is flowing, and the momentum is real. But a lockout could torch it all. Will the WNBA fumble the single biggest opportunity in its history? Let me know your prediction below. But before you drop that prediction, we need to dig deeper into the ticking time bomb that nobody is talking about nearly enough: the media rights deal. The WNBA's current deal with ESPN, ION, and Amazon is an absolute bargain basement steal, signed long before the Clark phenomenon sent ratings into the stratosphere. We're talking about a deal worth around $60 million per year. To put that in perspective, the NBA's deal is worth 2.6 billion a year. The league is currently negotiating its next contract, set to begin in 2026, and experts were projecting a new deal that could easily top $200 million annually, maybe even more. This new media deal is the foundational pillar upon which every single player demand rests. It's the money that will pay for charter flights, higher salaries, and better facilities. It is, quite literally, the future of the league, and a lockout is the equivalent of taking a sledgehammer to that pillar right in the middle of negotiations. Media executives aren't going to commit 9 figures to a league that can't guarantee it will even have a season. They'll see the internal strife, the inability to capitalize on a once-in-a-generation star, and they will dramatically lower their offer. The players think they're fighting for a bigger slice of the pie, but their fight could shrink the pie to a fraction of its potential size, leaving everyone with crumbs. You also have to understand the psychology of the team owners, which is far more complex than simple greed. For decades, owning a WNBA team was less of a business investment and more of a philanthropic write-off or a vanity project for an NBA owner. Most of these teams have been hemorrhaging money for years, operating deep in the red. Now, for the first time ever, they see a legitimate path to profitability, driven almost entirely by Clark. From their perspective, they weathered the lean years, subsidized the league when no one was watching, and now that there's a gusher of new revenue, the Players Association immediately wants to divert a massive chunk of it into operational costs and salaries. The owners are likely arguing for a slower, more sustainable model. Reinvest the Clark windfall into marketing, infrastructure, and franchise stability to build a foundation that can last for 50 years, rather than just jacking up salaries for the next 5. They see the players' demands not just as a grab for cash, but as a potentially fatal miscalculation that prioritizes short-term gains over the long-term survival of the business they've kept afloat for a quarter century. This entire conflict is further complicated by a deep, unspoken schism within the WNBA itself. You have a veteran class of players, women who have scraped and clawed for every dollar, who have played for peanuts in front of sparse crowds and endured decades of disrespect. For them, this is their one and only chance to cash in, to finally get the payday they believe their pioneering efforts deserve. They see the revenue spikes and view it as back pay for their years of service in building the league. Then you have the new generation, the Clark class, who are the actual drivers of this new revenue, but are locked into restrictive rookie-scale contracts. They're watching veterans negotiate for massive paydays funded by the ticket and jersey sales of players making a fraction of their salaries. This creates a bizarre internal dynamic where the union's most powerful voices, the veterans on the executive committee, are negotiating for benefits that will primarily enrich themselves, all while the union's primary source of leverage, Caitlin Clark, has a vested interest in simply playing and not derailing her own historic career momentum with a work stoppage. It's a generational power struggle disguised as a labor dispute. Let's talk about the flashpoint issue that has become a proxy war for this entire conflict: charter flights. To the casual fan, it seems simple. The players are stars, they should fly charter. But the Players Association has masterfully weaponized this issue, framing it as a matter of safety and respect, when it's really a negotiation tactic. The league's initial pushback wasn't just about the cost of the flights themselves, which is estimated to be around $25 million per season. It was about the precedent and the logistical nightmare. The CBA is a collective agreement. You can't just grant a benefit to one or two teams. If you provide them for everyone, you need to have the planes, the staff, and the airport infrastructure available in 12 different markets, consistently, for an entire season. Furthermore, giving in on this one issue outside of the formal CBA negotiation would show weakness and signal to the union that the owners will cave to public pressure. The charter flight debate stopped being about travel logistics and became a symbolic battleground. For the players, it's about being treated like elite professionals. For the owners, it's about maintaining control over the negotiation process and not letting the entire CBA be decided in the court of public opinion on social media. If the league and the players need a cautionary tale, they only need to look at the historical graveyard of sports leagues that committed suicide by lockout. Look no further than the NHL in 2004-2005. The league, convinced of its own indispensability, canceled an entire season over a salary cap dispute. What happened? They fell off the face of the earth. They vanished from ESPN, lost a generation of casual fans who simply found other things to watch, and spent the next decade desperately trying to claw their way back to relevance. The WNBA is in an even more precarious position. It doesn't have a century of history to fall back on. Its current popularity is a brand new phenomenon, a fragile ecosystem built around a single star. A lockout would be an extinction-level event. The NHL eventually recovered, but it took years of painful rebuilding. The WNBA doesn't have that kind of time. The cultural moment is now, and if they lock the doors, that moment will pass and it will never come back with the same force. And what about the sponsors? The very corporations that have finally started pouring money into the league are watching this with terror. Companies like Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, and Google have built entire marketing campaigns around Caitlin Clark and the WNBA's ascendant moment. These are multi-million-dollar activations with timelines, budgets, and deliverables. A lockout turns their investment into a black hole. They can't activate a campaign around a player who isn't playing or a league that's gone dark. That marketing money doesn't just sit in an account waiting for the WNBA to get its act together. It gets reallocated. It will go to the NWSL, to women's tennis, to college sports, or back to men's sports. A lockout isn't just a pause button. It's a giant red eject button for corporate sponsors who need visibility and a positive narrative. Rebuilding that trust and recapturing those marketing dollars after a bitter public labor dispute would be an almost impossible task. We also can't ignore the man behind the curtain, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. The NBA still owns a significant stake in the WNBA, and while it has pushed for the league to become a self-sustaining business, it's not in the NBA's interest to see it completely collapse. Silver is in an incredibly delicate position. He's widely seen as a progressive, player-friendly commissioner. If he comes down hard on the WNBPA on behalf of the WNBA owners, he risks damaging his reputation and potentially creating friction with his own NBA players' union. However, if he encourages WNBA owners to capitulate to every demand, he sets a dangerous precedent and undermines the very business principles he's trying to instill. His role will likely be that of a reluctant, behind-the-scenes mediator. He will try to force both sides to see the bigger picture, that they are fighting over the furnishings inside a house that is about to be consumed by a forest fire. Whether he can successfully broker a peace deal before the whole thing goes up in flames is the billion-dollar question. Finally, let's consider the global context. A lockout doesn't just mean players sit at home. It means the world's best talent will immediately pack their bags and head overseas. Elite players can earn significantly more money playing in leagues in Turkey, China, or even Australia. A WNBA lockout would be the single greatest recruiting tool for these international leagues. They could offer not only massive, tax-friendly salaries, but, more importantly, stability. The WNBA's claim as the undisputed premier destination for women's basketball talent would be shattered. And once a player establishes a life and a career overseas, getting them to come back to a league that just torched a year of their prime isn't a guarantee. The league could suffer a catastrophic talent drain, leaving a diluted product even if they do eventually return. The fight for more money at home could ironically end up driving the league's biggest stars to get paid elsewhere, permanently diminishing the quality of the WNBA for years to come. So when we look at Caitlin Clark, smiling, healthy, and ready to take over, we're not just looking at an athlete. We're looking at the catalyst for a perfect storm. She is the winning lottery ticket that the league is threatening to tear up in a fit of rage. Her health isn't just good news for the Indiana Fever. It is the ultimate stress test for the entire institution of women's professional basketball. Every stakeholder, owners, veterans, rookies, sponsors, and media partners, is now in a high-stakes game of chicken, driving full speed towards a cliff, all because the arrival of a generational talent has exposed every single fracture that has existed within this league for the past 28 years. The stage is set for her to elevate the sport to unimaginable heights, but the people in charge of the stage are too busy fighting over who gets the best seat to notice they've rigged the whole thing with dynamite. The real question isn't whether they'll fumble the opportunity. It's how big the explosion will be when they do. So we are left with two parallel futures existing simultaneously. In one, a fully healthy Caitlin Clark takes the court in a league that has secured its financial future. She shatters records, her rivalry with players like Angel Reese defines a decade of basketball, and the WNBA solidifies its place as a major American sports league, with franchise valuations soaring into the billions. In the other, her sophomore season never happens. The league goes dark. The broadcast partners walk away, the speculative money vanishes, and the biggest what-if in sports history isn't about a player's injury, but about a league's inexplicable decision to commit suicide at the moment of its own birth. The fuse Clark lit is still burning, but the bomb it's attached to isn't a cultural explosion. It's a self-destruct mechanism, and the clock is ticking.